Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking BaD. I am your host, Nevada McNeil, and today we have a super special guest, Alena. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Alena's actually our first alumni to ever come on the podcast. It's just so exciting. And, well, welcome back, I guess. Not even welcome, too. So, I kind of just want to jump right in.
Sure.
We're talking about, obviously, you being an alum, so I want to get into that. When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2018.
Oh, geez. So, it's what, 6 years?
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Wow, that's so exciting. That's so awesome. So, obviously, this class, you can even just see from this, has evolved so much. I want to know, like, what was class like for you when you were in? I know it was photography back then, but, like, what differences have you noticed for sure?
I mean, just walking in, everything looks different, first of all. Like, everything looks amazing. It doesn't look like a classroom like it did when I was here. I mean, we did a lot to try to make it not feel like a classroom.
Yeah.
Never really felt like a classroom. But, like, the decor in here now just, like, matches the energy of everything, like, the class kind of stands for. I would say, like, are you talking about, like, learning?
Yeah, like, just in general, like, when you took this class versus even when you came, like, she came and spoke to the class today, just the environment and, like, how he runs the class and just stuff like that, even maybe just how it looks, but just the environment in general.
I feel like the environment's still kind of the same. Yeah. Like, it doesn't feel like a traditional classroom. It feels more like, almost like a job. Like, you're here to, like, learn and, like, do things, but it doesn't feel like you're being taught. It feels like you're actively, like, going out and doing things and learning in, like, a experience kind of way. Yeah. And that's what I loved about this class, and that's why it was so fun.
Yeah, I think Mr. Schwab obviously emphasizes, like, this isn't a class, this is a program.
Yes.
Is how he always says
Very
it.
Much, yes.
So I think that's definitely, I don't know, that's just the most important part about this whole situation. So is there anything that you learned in this program that stuck with you and that you genuinely, like, use in your job today?
Yes.
That you think is, like, important?
Of course. I use almost every single program we used in this class. I don't know what you guys are learning now, but we only use Adobe products. We only use, like, Mac, Apple systems. So, like, learning all of that, like, technically
helps.
I mean, is a huge part of my job now, so I use all of that information that I learned here and that experience, as well as, like, when I was here, and I don't know how it works anymore 100%, but when I took the business and photography class, it was, like, we all had little jobs, and so I was part of the team that went out and did all the, like, team photography stuff. And so I think just being able to, like, kind of know and experience how a photo shoot works and how to kind of, like, direct people and move people and, like, adjust people and, like, look for little things like hair ties on their wrist. I'm sure Schwab still, like, harps on you guys about that.
Yeah.
But that, and then also, like, you know, having to make, like, a split-second decision, like, oh, is this good enough? Do we like this? Okay, next, you know, and that's a huge part of my job as well, being at photo shoots, directing photo shoots, like, making, like, split-second decisions. So I think a lot of my experience here has helped me in my career, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So after you graduated, what happened? Did you go to school and then start a job? Did you work through college? Kind of talk to me about that.
So I've been working since I was 16. So I worked my way through high school. I worked my way through college, and waitressing, like, in restaurants. And so that didn't really change after I graduated. I still was waitressing and just obviously, like, applying to jobs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So doing that while I was figuring out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be in the world. And just before I got another job, I didn't want to quit.
Is that difficult? Like, just trying to navigate college and being passionate about that, but also trying to focus on your career? Did you find that difficult? Was that a roadblock at all, or was it pretty easy to manage?
I would say working in a restaurant gives you a lot of freedom and, like, freedom with time, especially. And so I felt like I always had enough time to be, like, looking at jobs and, like, looking, like, on a job hunt, I guess you could say. So I didn't feel like it was difficult, but, I mean, it's a little challenging to balance, like, work and school and social life and all of that.
Definitely.
So, I mean, it just kind of, it's a lot easier to look for jobs and only work than it is to be in school and doing everything all at once, so.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot. Yeah. Well, so you talk about you were a waitress. Was that, like, your big job before you got, we'll talk about later, she works at Hurley now, but before that, was that your big job, or did you have anything else, like, even remotely in the industry?
No, that was pretty much it. I had only worked in the restaurant industry, and I had done that for about 9 years before I got, or I'm sorry, about, like 8, 9 years before I got my job at Hurley.
Mm-hmm.
And I went directly from working in a restaurant to working in a corporate office, which is a huge transition.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I learned a lot of really important skills in the restaurant customer service industry that still apply to my job today.
Yeah.
That I think are important for me to learn.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually want to ask you about that. So,
Sure.
how did working in a restaurant, because I know like a lot of people in high school who are probably watching this work in
Yeah.
a restaurant,
Yeah.
how did that prepare you for a corporate job? Like I know it's very different, but is there anything that connected and like actually helped you?
I would say there's a lot of little skills you can learn in a restaurant that help with like the fundamentals of working in a corporate
Mm-hmm.
job. It's still a lot different, but I would say like the fundamentals of like customer service,
Yeah.
like, you know, problem solving, how to speak to people, especially when it's like a problem.
Right.
You know, how you communicate with people, as well as like time management, balancing
Yeah.
multiple projects at the same time, but like multiple tables, multiple like things going on, constantly, you know, following up with people, like that kind of flow. Those fundamentals, I feel like, can really prepare you for a corporate job.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
It's transitional to like anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Working at Hurley is definitely a lot different than working, you know, as a waitress. So,
Yes.
talk about Hurley. What do you do? What's your job title and like what does it mean?
So my job title, I am the sales product operations coordinator
Wow.
at Hurley for the
Wow.
men's company, and so basically a really fancy title that means I do a bunch of things.
Okay.
So, but photo shoots, photography for like our internal catalog use for
Yeah.
our sales reps is one of the bigger parts of my job. But I also do like some event planning, and
Okay.
I do a lot of scheduling, and I do a lot of I do a lot of things.
Busy work, just the behind the scenes.
I'm kind of also just like the one extra thing person, like,
Yeah.
which is, it's my first job, and I'm like in the
That's
beginning
important.
stages, so like if anyone needs anything, I'm kind of like the go-to person for like facilitating stuff too. So
I bet you're very helpful to a lot of people, even if you're
I do my
even if you
best.
feel
I'm
like
still
you're
figuring it out.
at the bottom. But that's awesome. So how did you go about getting that job from working at a restaurant? How did you get that job? Like how did you go about that?
So I was working at the Brant in Pacific City, which is like, it's a restaurant that's only been there for like a little over a year now, but I helped open up the restaurant. And then we, basically during my time there, I had just finished school and was kind of applying to jobs. It was actually almost a year ago from now. And we had sometimes there's like buyouts where you have like a huge group of people come in and like 2 or 3 servers work that. And so it was this large 80-person group from Hurley.
Yeah.
And I was the person who was kind of responsible for communicating with the person in charge. And so throughout the night, after a while, I'd kind of been like, you know, like, what are you guys here for? Like, this seems really cool. Everyone's really nice. You know, I want to know what's going on. And she basically told me that they have these huge sales meetings twice a year, and people from like Europe and Canada and New York, everyone all gathers, and then this is like a big thank you for like a thank you dinner for everyone being there. And then at the end of the dinner, when I was like basically asking her for her credit card, I was like, hey, so, you know, like, I really love what you guys are doing, and I've kind of been thinking about getting into sales. Like, do you mind if I get your business card or like your phone number or something to be able to like ask you about your job and like kind of just hear more about your story? And she was like, well, I don't have a card, but I'll give you my phone number. So I was like, great, cool. And then we started texting a little bit, and she had basically told me that she was maybe going to be looking for an assistant soon. And so I was like, okay, this has to be me. I want to know how to do this. But anyways, that kind of fell through, but I didn't stop like following up. And I basically sent just about every week, I sent an email, or like mostly emails, but I sent an email following up every week for like 7 months.
Wow.
Trying to get my foot in the door. And I mean, at the same time, I was still applying to other jobs and stuff too, but like this was just one I like knew I really wanted. And then after that like 7-month period, after a while, I guess, basically what had happened is, I didn't know this at the time, I kind of went into they had asked me to come in for a job interview.
Right.
And I kind of went into it blind. I didn't really know what job I was interviewing for. I didn't know how much they were going to pay me. I didn't know what anything was. But then I found out that they had basically, the girl I had been communicating with had been promoted, and that they were interviewing to replace her job that she was being promoted from.
Yeah.
And so then that's how I got my job.
Wow, that's a lot. Being persistent, definitely, I can tell, is a big part of your story, because if you would have just texted her one day when she first gave you her number, it probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. So I think that's really awesome. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And also another big thing, which I forgot to mention this, I know I mentioned it earlier, but they had told me after I had gotten the job that I was up against 7 people who had a lot more experience
Mhm.
in the industry and just
Right.
like in general had way more experience than I did. And they basically picked me just because of how persistent I was. And I had no
That's awesome.
experience. I'm like fresh out of college. Like I had no idea what I was doing coming from a restaurant. So
That's awesome. Good
it was
for you.
awesome.
I noticed you said that you literally just went up to her when you were getting her check and like,
Mhm.
can I get your number?
Mhm.
That is super taunting and very
Yes,
scary.
very intimidating.
What advice would you give someone who's trying to look for a job in a certain industry, is trying to do that, but
Mhm.
I'm scared, I don't want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, what advice would you give someone for something like that?
I mean, it's a lot easier said than done to be like, don't be scared.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to just rip the Band-Aid off. Like, do it. But I feel like the part that's intimidating in, I don't know, everyone's different, but I guess the part that's intimidating in my mind was that, oh my gosh, I'm asking for a job. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound desperate. Like, I'm
Mhm.
asking for a job. So don't ask about a job. Just ask like, hey, I love the field you're in. I've been thinking about, being in that field myself. Is there any way I could just get your number just to pick your brain and like hear your story about how, or like hear more about your job? Like just you're
Mhm.
interested about them and about their experiences, about the knowledge that they have that they can tell you about.
Right.
Not necessarily a job. I mean, like if a job
Yeah.
comes out of it, that's
Great.
cool, but I don't think that should be your expectation or intention when you're like asking someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes it better
Yeah.
and easier in my
Then,
mind,
yeah,
at
just
least, to
begging,
ask
whatever.
like, I'm just asking them for like a conversation.
So I noticed that you mentioned that you are a lot less experienced than the people you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a roadblock for you at all? Like, how do you navigate that?
I think it's not really I don't feel like it's a roadblock for the people I work with. Like,
Mhm.
everyone I work with is super awesome and super welcoming and super respectful, and like everyone I feel like thinks that I can do this job.
Mhm.
And I think I can. I mean, I know I can do it, but
Yeah.
it was more. I feel like the only way it's come up to like for me is like when we have meetings, and someone will say something because they've been there so long and they think everyone knows what we're talking about, and they'll say something,
Right.
and I'm kind of like, oh shoot, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I kind of, either after the meeting, I have to go up to them and be like, hey, can you explain this to me?
Yeah,
Or
that's
like,
important. That's
or
great.
like having to ask like in the meeting, like, can we go over what that means? Because I don't know. Like, I haven't been there that long. I don't know everything.
Mhm.
So I think just also in that sense, just not being afraid to like ask still, because
Yeah.
I mean, you need to know what's going on, especially if it's your job, your
Yeah.
livelihood. So
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
yeah,
We
thank
love
you.
having you here.
Thank you
Thank you
for
for
having me.
coming back. I
Yeah.
guess not even just being here.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
I think everyone's really going to love to hear your story because you're
Cool.
definitely closer to our age than most of our guests that we've had in the past,
Oh, okay.
like last year.
Yeah,
So it's definitely a lot more relatable, and I appreciate you being here and
Yeah.
taking your time.
of course. Yeah,
So
thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Talking BaD, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more guests and videos like this. I think it'll be a great year. I'm excited. So thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.